I don't know how to say this. Is it Yachty? Yachty? Whatever. I have no idea how you say this. Is it Yogtze? Whatever. I'm probably making a fool of myself. Germany's strangest unsolved mystery. So it's about my country. Absolute Bundesrepublik Deutschland. Anyway, Spektator. We're going in. I have no idea what this is. We're gonna look at this. I got no idea. Also, please consider liking and subscribing. I appreciate it. Yeah, we'll see. Let's see.
On the night
You may find disturbing. That's not good. Chat, this not be good. Hopefully, it's not a crocodile case, right? A Peter. Peter.
night of October the 25th, 1984, Gunther Stoll, a 34-year-old unemployed
Günther. Günther Stoll. Or Stoll. Probably Stoll. Unemployed. Food engineer. 34 years old. Ugly as shit.
food engineer from Arnshausen in West Germany, was quietly sitting in his chair at home when out of the blue, he rose to his feet and proclaimed,
Jetzt gib mir ein Licht auf.
He quickly grabbed the nearest piece of paper and scribbled down a 6-character word, Yogsi, before he immediately crossed it out in a blind panic and left. Stoll's wife watched on as he shut the front door behind him, got in his car and drove away into the darkness at 11 p.m. This hadn't been the first time Stoll's wife had witnessed strange behaviour from her husband, who had been suffering in recent times from a moderate case of paranoia. He had occasionally been warning her of them, an unknown and unspecified amount of people who he claimed were out to harm him and wanted him dead. But it's unclear whether or not she believed this to be true, or if she put it down to Stoll's mental state.
So bro wrote this down, ran somewhere, and that's it. Crossed it out and went somewhere. That's it. Interesting. Huh. Maybe Delulu?
Whilst his wife sat at home perplexed by the meaning of this mysterious new note, Stoll had driven to his nearby favourite pub in Wilnsdorf, where he would order a beer and sit at the bar. After taking merely one sip of the drink, Stoll fell to the floor in a heap, landing on his face and injuring himself. Witnesses at the pub later insisted that Stoll was in no way intoxicated or drunk, but that he seemed to suddenly lose consciousness after looking distressed and anxious. In a dazed state, Stoll slowly picked himself up off the floor before leaving the pub alone, getting back into his car and driving off once more.
Maybe mental illness? Right? That could be. Maybe some sickness. You know, something going on wrong in the brain? Interesting.
Approximately 2 hours later, at about 1 a.m, Stoll had stopped by the nearby town of Hagelsilbach, where he grew up, and turned up to the house of an elderly woman whom he knew from his childhood. Refusing to open the door to him and demanding he go home, the woman claimed that Stoll was worried for his safety, claiming that horrible incidents would take place tonight. Stoll would soon leave as requested, but his last reported words would soon become much more than just paranoid speculation.
Interesting. Just more than paranoid speculation. Maybe he's Sudoku and acted like this. Or that. Interesting. Yeah, it's weird. Okay, it's weird. Interesting. Horrible events will unfold.
Around 2 hours later, at 3 a.m, 2 truck drivers were driving along the Autobahn 45, roughly 60 miles from Hagelsilbach, when they noticed the wreck of a small blue Volkswagen Golf.
Or let me guess. Günther? is no longer in the car. They cannot find him. Or is that what it is? Probably. He's probably gone. He's probably not in the car.
Collapsed in a trench on the side of the road. As they parked their vehicles onto the hard shoulder, both men claimed they saw a person in a white jacket with what appeared to be blood on his arm, limping around the Volkswagen before quickly losing sight, never to be seen again. As one driver raced for the roadside emergency phone, the other ran to the vehicle and inspected inside. What he found was Stoll sprawled out in the passenger seat, lying naked and clinging on for life with various injuries.
Interesting. Huh. Got he into some trouble? Maybe he got into some trouble. That could be. That could be. Maybe some debt. Maybe, I don't know. Interesting. Well, why naked? Why butt naked?
It's reported that one of Stoll's arms was so badly injured that it was practically amputated. As the truck driver came to his aid, Stoll found the strength to speak, explaining that there had been 4 other male passengers in the car with him just moments earlier who had fled the scene, insisting that none of them were his friends. An ambulance would soon arrive to treat Stoll for his numerous injuries, yet despite their best efforts, he would unfortunately die on the way to the hospital.
Interesting. So, obviously there's multiple options, right? This was actually just random, right? Could have been. But then again, he said that horrible things would happen, so maybe not. Or he got into trouble, right? Or he just straight up got into trouble and that's it. Right? And they took him out. And that's it. And then fled. And that's all. Right? Those are the 2 options.
And in doing so, had created one of Germany's greatest ever unsolved mysteries. The circumstances surrounding Stoll's death were already extremely suspicious, yet police investigations led to even more questions and perplexities. Their findings showed that Stoll didn't obtain his injuries by crashing in his Volkswagen, but instead had been run over elsewhere by a different car in a different location, before being repositioned back into his Volkswagen.
Interesting. But how would this have happened? Because, like, consider this, right? He drove away with his car. So there's 2 options, right? There's probably... So one ran away, right? But he said multiple were in the car. Okay, how does this work? So did he, like, get out? They ran him over, right? Grabbed him again, put him into the seat. Then all of the other ones got in the car, drove there, and then just left. But only one was seen.
His car keys were found on the rear shelf of the car. His shoes were in the footwell of the driver's seat, but it's unclear why he was naked or what had even happened to his clothing. Other drivers who came forward claimed to have seen a hitchhiker trying to obtain a lift from cars turning off near the Hagensud exit, close to where Stoll's car was found. The whereabouts of this man remains unknown, as does that of the man in the white jacket and the alleged 4 men in the Volkswagen. Many theories on what happened to...
Well, probably one of these 2, either both, or one of these is probably part of the 4 men. Right? That's it. Kinks. Probably. Of course, this could have been... Yeah. That could be an option, right? They probably... Well, we've seen Mafia also do horrible things, right? Shoving something up someone's booty until it eventually just, like... You know, we did that before.
Stoll during the night of the 25th of October have been widely debated, and speculations continue on whether the mysterious note left behind just hours earlier has any significance to solving the case. The only thing that police seem to be certain on is that Gunther was hit by another vehicle whilst he was naked, leaving potentially 3 main possibilities on the cause of his death.
Huh. Okay. Okay. Mexican cartel. That wasn't Mexican. That was in the U.S. That much I remember. Headless hanging. Yeah, that one. That one's also an option. So they probably 2 options. They got into the car, right? He stopped. They got into the car, moved him over, right? They undressed. Either they pulled him out, probably. They undressed him. They let him run away naked, and then just drove after him, running him over, then putting him in his own car, and there's that. Right?
The first is that Stull was murdered and placed back into his car to stage the scene as an accident, either by the 4 men he claimed were in the vehicle with him or by somebody else. The fact that Stull had previously spoken about them trying to murder him in the days leading up to his death gives credence to this theory and suggests that he really did have reason to believe his life was in danger and it wasn't just paranoid schizophrenia. The second is that he was involved in some sort of accident, possibly a hit and run whilst on the motorway. Perhaps he initially crashed his car into the roadside, got out to look for help and stumbled onto oncoming traffic. With the driver, plus potentially 3 other passengers, perhaps worried that they may be charged for the accidental manslaughter of Stull, they quickly carried his body back into his car to make it look as though his injuries were obtained from the initial crash. Neither theory, however, can explain for Stull's lack of clothing during the incident. A third theory suggests that Stull attempted to take his own life, rushing out onto the autobahn to get hit by another vehicle in a distressed state. Due to the frustrating lack of evidence on how Gunther Stull met his unfortunate fate that night in October.
Huh. I mean, interesting. I suppose that's an option, right? Him trying to take his own life, right? That is, of course, an option that we have here. The question would just be, considering how heavily hurt he was, you know, it highly is unlikely that he would have probably gotten back to the car that easily. The other question is also, where's the person that ran him over? Because right? They probably wouldn't just continue driving for the most part, I'm assuming.
The significance of the note he left behind, hours prior to his death, have become a matter of public debate. While some believe it was the nonsensical ramblings of a man in an incoherent state, others believe it holds a vital clue into how Gunther Stull lost his life. Some suggest that the letters O, G and E could in fact be numbers 0, 6 and 3, and when rewritten this way, it could be interpreted as a 6-digit European car license plate number. Could it be that Gunther was attempting to remember the car license plate of the person who was threatening his life? Maybe even the car which ended up hitting him later that night? What makes this theory even more interesting is the way German number plates work. They use specific letter codes at the beginning of the plate to determine where the car was registered. For example,
Interesting, a plate, huh? Most cases they do, I guess, sure. But it feels like, I don't know. Also, if this would have happened, considering how heavily injured he was, right? There was no mention of blood on the street. There was no mentioning of blood that leads back to the car. So there's the question. There is also another option that this was actually in a different location. That it was ran over in a different location and brought into the car. Because why is there no blood?
a license plate beginning with B would indicate it was registered in Berlin, whilst M would indicate Munich. Some codes are exclusively used for official registrations of vehicles of particular importance, and interestingly, Y number plates indicate that a vehicle is registered to the German Armed Forces. Searching every potential combination of the license plate yields no results, though if it is a military vehicle, it could be that it's intentionally being hidden from public records. Further theories have been widely dismissed as to having little to no relevance to the case, such as the
I mean, it would be interesting. So what the question is like, I mean, there is an option that it was ran over by like a you know, military person, of course, right? Then it would be hidden, obviously. However, why would again, if it is targeted, why would the German military try to kill a random 34-year-old unemployed dude?
phrase Y06TZE being the call sign of a Romanian radio station, or that, when rewritten upside down, it creates what appears to be coordinates to a small Hawaiian island and an area deep in the Arctic. However, there are two other interesting theories which centre around Stoll's profession as a food engineer and his possible connection with the food industry. The first is that the word yogsi can be split into two, with yog referring to yogurt and TZE being a code used for a type of artificial flavouring, although there's very little information about what food ingredient TZE is supposed to be. The second is that the word itself is an anagram of zygote, the first stage in the development of a genetically unique organism, but the term can also be used when referring to genetic enhancements in food production. What if Stoll perhaps knew of a project which involved genetically modifying a form of food, but that it may have been done with nefarious intentions? Perhaps he investigated the cause and knew too much, putting his life in danger. The people behind these experiments may have tracked and monitored his movements. Maybe
They are poisoning us. They are poisoning us through food. They must be stopped at all cost. Dies.
he wrote down a cryptic message to share this news, before realising it might lead to unwanted attention for his wife. So scribbled it out, leaving the home, fearing he would be putting her in danger by staying indoors. He may have seen someone at the pub that caused him to react and fall over. With nobody to turn to, he visited an old friend from a previous time and begged for their help, only to be turned away despite desperate pleas. Perhaps he was kidnapped by 4 men who were part of this clandestine project, stripped naked and eventually taken out before staging the whole thing to look like an accident. It's quite the stretch, in my opinion. I personally believe it's more likely that Stoll, in a delusional state, had stripped off and disposed of his clothes prior to crashing his car into the trench on the autobahn. Desperate for help, he ran out onto oncoming traffic and got hit by another driver, who either fled the scene or carried Stoll, with 3 other passengers' help, back into his Volkswagen to make the whole thing look like an accident, before disappearing and never speaking of the incident again.
Honestly, maybe it was like involved. Do we know if he took drugs? Maybe that could also have been the case, right? Would be surprising if somebody was unemployed, right? A little bit on the lower end of society, so to speak. Hogan did this. I didn't do nothing. I didn't do anything. I'm a good boy. I didn't do shit.
No matter what happened that night to Gunther Stoll, the case of his unfortunate death has become one of Germany's greatest mysteries, and the true meaning of Yogsi may never see the light of day. Whether he became the target of a malicious and evil assault, or was purely a victim of his own personal struggles, the tragedy of Gunther Stahl and the mystery of Yogsi will likely remain forever unknown and forever unsolved.
Interesting. I didn't know that this was a thing here, right? It was a government case. Interesting. That makes it just more suspicious. Whatever, but that kind of just makes it more suspicious. Interesting though. Yeah, I think, right? There might be a chance, right? That in his own delusion that's happened. I also think that it might just have been a random occurrence, right? Maybe just fucking robbed him and then left him behind. And that was it. That could also have been the case, right? But that's all really. We'll never figure it out, and we'll never know who did this.